You fill your mouth with words and words. You twist them well. Oh yes, I heard. Shits and ties don't cover your life. I see you come. You try. You know me, you say we get the same society. Oh. You know me, you say we get the same philosophy. Oh. You know me, you say we get the same society. Oh. You know me, you say we get the same philosophy.
Imagine a world where everything begins with a smile. Every thought that counts is about just making a difference. People around you, people you know, people you do not know, and always sharing and caring, especially these trying times. That is a world we all pray for, especially here on the Baroness. It's a pleasure to have you join us yet again on this interesting episode of the Baroness. We indeed have a lot in store for you, so like we always say, we hope that you are multitasking, if entirely not leaving what you're doing to take part in today's episode. I will not be doing this alone. Anita Malum is looking gorgeous, and I say this with all authority because I love fashion and she is actually wowing today. Anita.
Thank you in all my simplicity. Sure. Thank you for joining us on the Baroness today, and of course today promises to be a beautiful one. Like we always do whenever we come, the moments are never ever dull. We are assuring you of that one. So just make sure that your dial is here and that smile is permanently on your face, and make sure it radiates to someone else.
Definitely. And you know the contagious thing about smiles is that once you start, it's like the whole world is infected. People around you start smiling and it's like a cough.
And
one
they
person
ask
coughs.
you, what I smiling
yes.
for? And you're like, well.
You're smiling because. So, in as much as we just want to make a difference, we also want to be there for you to bring the issues that matter, the things that will change your lives a day at a time, because that is what we are here for on the Baroness. You know, last week was a roller coaster on the Baroness. It was quite interesting. We talked about teachers, the foundation of every young mind, teachers. You know, the popular adage that teachers' rewards is in heaven. No. We want it to start here on earth. And that begins with empowering them with opportunities. Our guest on the Baroness, who had one of such opportunities, a candidate of the Fulbright Exchange Education Program. She actually traveled abroad, where teachers from across the country, across the nation, beyond the continent, came together to just learn about how to make teaching better in society today. You know, the sad thing about teachers is like a lot of teachers nowadays believe that it is quite okay to stop at a point in time and then not upgrade themselves.
Exactly. And because some of them don't really have the passion, they don't want to improve on themselves, and some of them feel, improving on myself doesn't really make any difference and I'm already trained. But the exposure from what she shared with us gave her the opportunity to know how things are done in other climes and how she can apply those teaching skills to get our children to learn better. You know, we don't know all. We don't have it all. So a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and you use that to improve on what you have. And, you know, she said for us in Nigeria, the advantage of our kind of education, which I found really interesting, is the fact that it is communal, sort of. You know, it is communal. You get to learn together. But over there, they're quite individualistic, and you do a lot of learning on your own. And it's good, but then it's not, because if you don't have the opportunities to explore other avenues that could give you information, then you might not really get to know how you should. I think that's why when our children go over there, or anybody from Nigeria crosses this shore and goes for education outside the shores of Nigeria, they just excel.
You know, one thing I love about such integration platforms is the networking opportunities. You get to learn from various countries. In as much as it's been argued that our education system is a bit backward compared to more advanced countries, I'm sure there are a lot of things they could also learn from us. Give an example with even this communal learning. There are pros and cons to it. So we hope that with opportunities like that, people get to learn and be better evolved. And then using technology to work for you rather than using yourself to cause chaos using technology. Well, we'll go straight to today's topic on the Baroness. You know, I started with this statement. Imagine a world where there is peace, where everybody gets to smile. Ideally, it's what we all want for, but that cannot be our reality. So we will adapt to present realities and make them work for us. Our topic on the Baroness today is setting up community security challenges. In light with a lot that has happened on the plateau, and it's still happening, we need to be secure in our homes, in our communities. Our guests will talk us through how to do that, how to be better, and how to be prepared for eventualities. We do not pray for bad things to happen, but then when they happen, we do not want to be caught with our arms folded, waiting for or just wondering what we could have done differently. Anissa Malum, please introduce our guest.
Our guest is a public affairs commentator, and apart from him being a public affairs commentator, he is an architect. And one thing that I know about architects is that they plan. They plan, they are focused, and they have a vision. They visualize whatever it is that they're planning, and over time, they are able to bring that to life. So I'm sure all that our guest will share with us is going to help us understand the vision, and then hopefully together we would bring it to life. Setting up community security strategies is one thing that we don't really want to be a part of, and we just think it is the business of the security people alone. But architect Godwin William, who is our guest on the program, is going to walk us through how you and I can collaborate and partner with security operatives to be a part of the security architecture in our community. Remember, they said when you see something, you say something. It's like we have forgotten that gist too. We don't say something. We see something, and that is when everybody shuts up his mouth. So, Architect Godwin, good to have you join us on the program today.
Yeah, my pleasure always. Thank you very much.
You know, your entire energy screams, I am ready for business. We hope you're ready for business today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, we'll start off with this. Once upon a time, some years back, there was this jingle that was always being aired, reminding us security is everybody's business. When you hear something, when you see something, say something. But over the years, it's like that statement has evolved, or should I say we have changed it. When you hear something, when you see something, you shut up your mouth and you close your eyes. But why is that so? That adage at that time got a lot of people and a lot of communities to take up responsibilities of securing their environment. So when they see something fishy, they see someone they're not sure of, they promptly alert the security operatives around them. But it doesn't seem to be so. What happened?
Okay, thank you very much. May I start by probably giving a context to the entire security challenge that we found ourselves in Nigeria today. It didn't just start overnight. And for us to profile a good solution, we need to really contextualize where we're coming from, where we are today, and how we can make the best out of the situation we found ourselves. The whole security challenge in the country started, if you remember, just normal, more like street fight with sticks and stones, and at that point, staying on the defense was very easy because I usually tell people that if you have, let's say, a 6-year-old child, if he's wielding a stick It's very easy to, you ask him, look, be careful. If you hit me with this stick, I will teach you some lesson. But supposing that same child is holding a pistol, right? You cannot afford to tell him, look, if you touch me, I'll teach you a lesson. You would have been a goner by then. Now, when we started, sadly, with that kind of background, the security situation became a little bit complicated. We went through the then gone era, bows and arrows, and then today we are talking of military-grade weapons that are used by terrorists against the communities. Now, that comes with a lot of complexity. And sadly, our experience have been that, when government tries to control it, there are so many challenges associated with that. Now, we happen to get ourselves in that situation, and then the complexity of this military-grade position we found ourselves actually bequeath on government, who has the monopoly of legitimate application of force, to be the one that, when you report situations, they have what it takes to contain a little bit more than the community itself. Now, why I'm putting that is so that when we understand where we are and how things have really degenerated, for instance, if you look at the state we are now in our security challenge, even a lone wolf can take a whole community unawares, right? And when they come with these automatic military-grade rifles, it makes the control very difficult. However, there is a premise that if we organize our community very well, right, and we gather intelligence such that, before things happen, we will be a little bit a step ahead. It may not be absolute, because we have to understand that even in developed nations that have second strike capability, like the US, Russia, China, just name it, okay? There are nations, probably to give it a context to, nations are categorized into those that no matter how you hit them, they have what it takes to strike back. That's why we call them nations that have second strike capability, right? Now, even them, whether it's Russia, whether it's US, they have their own share of terrorism too, because they can, like I said, lone wolves or some little organized criminal elements can take them unawares. Now, coming back to the question you asked, when you see something, you say something, okay? I would say maybe some of the drawbacks that people may have, that you might think things are not exactly playing out the way we used to know, is probably some level of apathy, apprehension, by some communities that, they have said it on and on, probably, some solutions have not come their way as expected. And then, they might still have that, reluctance. But I think what we are trying to project today is to really evoke that confidence in them, how they can pull through. Because government remains government. They may have some challenges, like it is with every human endeavor. But then we have to make the best of any situation we found ourselves. Now, it is incumbent on the communities to really, first and foremost, form a community vigilance or surveillance.
Now, before we get to that surveillance or vigilance, I remember that I think I was told, I didn't live in a rural community, but I know that growing up, when you see someone strange, you practically know everybody that lives around you, and you know people because every time you walk down the street, there are faces that you see often. So it's very easy for you to pick out a strange face, and when you pick out a strange face, you can draw the attention of the Meangwa, or you, as a child or someone much older, you can draw the attention. This person, I've never seen him before, and it's like I've seen this person, coming round this area often. Can you help us check? But we don't seem to care. You have neighbors that come and live around you. I remember there was a statement that was made recently about Yahoo boys who seem to be just getting houses. They just rent a house no matter how high. Even if you pay for the house, they come and pay like 3 times the amount just to secure it and things like that. And you don't know what they do. Well, you have an idea of what they do, but you don't want to say anything because it is not my business. We have gotten to the point of it is not my business. So whatever they are doing, it is their business. It is not my business. And then we expose our communities to a lot of things. Why don't we still have that confidence in our community leaders? What happened? Because I go to my Meangwa and tell you, I have seen a strange face. Once upon a time, the Meangwa would draw the attention of all the other heads. A strange face has been identified. Can you go and follow up? And things like that. If it's something that is a threat or someone that is a threat, you hand over that person to the security.
First and foremost, coming from my professional background, the sad development of a repeated crisis is that we now stay in segregated neighborhood.
Okay.
Now, when you talk of, you see, because before the segregation, it was very easy. You live with virtually, everybody. You are not segregated based on religion or ethnicity. You live together. So it was very easy for you to pinpoint whoever comes in and is mischievous. But you see, when you have segregated settlements, now, and with the complexity of the crisis, which I try to, explain, you find out that if you look at most of the crises we've been having, is people on transit that will come and assault and then, pull out, and the society, the community is left vulnerable to their attack. Okay? Now, those that are within those neighborhoods, usually, because of the segregation, you tend to have the same kind of interest in security. So hardly, except if it's theft, people breaking up, for some, but to come to that community to assault it, I don't think they are residents. That is the point I'm just trying to underscore. Now, because they are from outside, it develops a little bit of, even if you keep vigil on people that come into the society, you discover that by evening a lot of them must have gone. Okay, so I don't think it adds too much value to be dealing with visitors that are transiting, within a very short period of time. I don't know if you get the point I'm making. Now, but our biggest challenge, and again, if you look at what is playing out, and it gives some of us a lot of hope, is we tend to have understanding within these warring communities now that some are in community A, they don't believe in the radicals within community A going to community B to attack them. And some are in community B that they don't like what is playing out. And I think, thank God, if we're in that position, it is easy for us to identify like minds in community B and like minds in community A, and we relate.
Okay.
And in so doing, you know, you can have, if something mischievous, because the point I'm making is community A will plan and assault community B. Now, when you have exclusive settlements, what is being planned in community A to assault B, if you don't have some like minds that will give you early warning, you know, you are at jeopardy. I don't know if that helps to answer some of the concerns you put forward.
Okay, let's talk about threats. You know, unfortunately, threats come from various quarters. And sometimes they come from areas where we underestimate. Sadly, when you look at the news today, you see innocent faces, even children, people you do not even expect to commit some of these heinous crimes being used. And at the end of the day, we're left asking ourselves, how do we identify threats in our societies to the point that we do not become paranoid? You know, sadly to say, right now, some people view their neighbors as possibly threats to them, and they might not really, they might not really be actually the threat. So how does one identify genuine threats around the society?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think we are coming now to the community, you know, vigil that I was trying to maybe project. Now, let me connect to where I stopped. You know, I believe, like I said, you know, there are people that have gotten weary about what is playing out on both sides. Now, that makes it very easy for us to have some level of inter-community collaboration. Okay? Now, for any community that, like the sad incidents that happened in Jos of recent and is going on in some other places, the first thing is for human beings, the first step for any progress is to come together. Okay, that's step number one. The community must come together and then identify the potentials within the community, because like if you take Tudunwada, for instance, in Jos, possibly there are some army officers, there are some police officers. You know the resources you have within the community, that when it comes to security and surveillance, these people will be invaluable assets to you to guide you in, you know, forming a vigil over the community itself. And then there comes in what you are asking about, you know, some of the, you know, miscreants within the community. Like I said, if we look at the bigger terrorism issue, which I think that is the biggest, rather than some little criminal activities within the community. That, I guess that is not what we are trying to project. Now, when you have such miscreants within, you know, when you have a community that have put the youth together, you know, they form a vigilante group, you know, because it's one of the things that these communities need to put in place. Then you have even streets in your community. You have people assigned with responsibility to patrol those streets. And when they see certain things that are happening that are untold, they will now raise alarm, okay, such that the wider community is immediately, is informed of potential threat that is coming their way. Now, in so doing too, you will also have people that will collaborate with the security agents, like the police, okay, and the army. They should have their hotlines in case of emergency, okay, and then know your neighbor for God's sake. And then people should leave their phones at vulnerable times, within reach,
Okay.
such that if there's emergency, it doesn't take 1 hour to mobilize the community, but within minutes, you find out that you would have passed messages across. Now, when you have that kind of arrangement on ground, and particularly when you liaise with the security agencies, you find out that they will be willing to share their expertise on how. Their requests, they should also be up and doing to help them. Because you see, when the public have a lot of confidence in the security architecture in place, then you find out that the flow of information, security information, will come unsolicited. But when you report and give early warning, and nothing happens, people tend to get a little bit discouraged, okay? Though, like we said, it's not as if that is a better route. Like I said, in every human endeavor, at times, we have failures, even in sophisticated environments.
But don't you think that when it comes to reporting supposed crimes before they occur, at the heart of it all, people are scared of probably being seen as suspects to it? The concept of that the Nigerian police is trying to correct, the whole Nigerian police is your friend, that a lot of people struggle with. They feel as though when you go to report your neighbor, or when you go to report suspicious activities, they begin to ask you random questions, and you find yourself being put in the hot seat. So a lot of people shy away from that. Don't you think that contributes to some of these problems?
Absolutely, you are right. I mean, on quantum merit, that is proportionately part of the drudgery that people, get into and feel, is it worth it? Okay? But you see, that's why I said, if we can only appeal to government that they maintain the security architecture in place in such a way that it evokes community confidence. Because if they do, I can assure you that a lot of people will be willing to share security information with them. But you see, it will be very devastating that we put in all our community effort, gather information that we are at jeopardy, and then suddenly, what we fear comes to play out in that society. Even those other communities that are unaffected, when they hear it, it doesn't build too much confidence. That is the point I'm just making. And once we do that, and you see, there's one thing. When I was coming for this program, I was just looking at quite a number of things, okay? If you are fighting terrorism, actually the best way to fight terrorism is by being proactive.
Okay.
And you see, it's government that has all it takes to do that effectively, using their monopoly of legitimate use of force. Because in terrorism, I love the Hausa rendition. They call it, it's like guerrilla warfare, which they say Sarik Anoke, okay? When you hit, you disappear.
Okay.
Right? Now, when you disappear, the rattle community will come out in panic and then they are struggling to grapple with what has happened to them. They will be found at the scene of crime, and they will be arrested. If you look at the pattern we've been having, the communities have been going through what you will call double jeopardy. They have been assaulted before, government comes to their rescue. When they come, they don't know who, and then they end up packing the victims again. And that does not abode very well, going forward. And it's like it fuels, terrorism to continue to flourish. But in terrorism is when you are hit, ideally, you just gather intelligence about where the assault is coming from, and government that has monopoly of legitimate use of force will now go in there and eliminate those threats.
Hold that thought. Seriously, we'll take a brief break, but when we return, the program still continues.
Yeah.
We'll be back briefly, and just remember that you can also contribute to the Baroness.
Far gone,
Thank you, comrade.
but hope is never lost.
Okay, Cameron, don't do that.
Hope is never lost.
We have another caller. That's all.
Consider that very
Hold on,
I have cause to send some.
Anyone can give it
Stay tuned to the Baroness on PRTV Jos every Tuesdays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and it repeats on Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
stay one step.
The Baroness, changing lives a day at a time.
You'll get through.
Thank you for being there. We've been looking at the topic, setting up community security strategies, and our guest is a public affairs commentator, architect Godwin William. A lot has happened in our society, and then technology, or rather we're in a technological age where everything right now, people refer to their smartphones faster than they could even refer to anything. So how can we leverage technology? Example, these phones that we have access to 24 hours a day, how can we leverage them to work for us in creating a more secure environment rather than as tools for chaos and conflict?
And to add to what Cameron said, there's every time I think about social media, I always think of the boy that cried wolf. There's a lot of wolf crying on social media, and people don't authenticate things. If somebody just sit down and imagine something, or he feels the town has been boring for a while, let me just ginger it up. They just put up a story without authenticating, and it causes a lot of fear and panic in the minds of people. How can we handle that? Because the rate at which it's going, there are times I wake up and I'm like, are we sure this social media will not be banned in Nigeria the way people are abusing it? And then the communities that you spoke about earlier, you add to that as well. You said the element of surprise. And then you come out, it has happened, you're surprised, and then you are the ones that are found at the place, and then the victims are the ones that get arrested and things like that. And we don't seem to learn. It's like a circle. Like the same thing keeps happening over and over again, and we have not learned. We have not asked ourselves that question. What are we doing wrong? Why does it all keep falling back on us? How can we do it differently? What can we do? How can our communities apply new methods now? Not the old methods. The old ways are certainly not working. And what are those new methods that our communities can apply to ensure that we get, I would say respite, but we get success? We get to succeed in apprehending some people or putting an end to all this that's happening.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me respond to the social media thing. You're absolutely right. The social media is a double-edged sword. It has its good side, it has its bad side. In fact, talking about the bad side, at times you see people will even carry images of things that happen in Niger Republic or in Mali, and they will post it and say this is happening in so-so location in Nigeria, and you wouldn't know whether, just to create panic. And as good as it is, I think it behoves on us as a people and as community to be very truthful in recording things that happen, particularly when you are sharing the information with the security personnel. At least let it be truthful. If it's not truthful, you are even causing more problem for your community, because they will act, although depending on the time they have, they can cross-check so many things. But you see, the good side of it too is that, at times so many things, particularly what personally, for me as a person, it disturbs me is when carnage is done and people will want to sweep it under the carpet. It's not good. And in fact, again, it will be triple jeopardy for a victimized community. But when we keep those things, it helps going forward. They can be analyzed, and, they have a better strategy. The regular security forces, they can use that, and even in some legal aspect too. Those things are good. But then where you deploy technology for the very wrong reasons, it will turn out to be very counterproductive, even to us as a people. Now, you talk about incessant reoccurrence of, crisis. Well, honestly, the way I look at it is, you see, in terrorism, you can hardly control a terrorist to drive sense. I don't know if you've been observing. They are one of the most difficult people to really drive sense into them, right? And when if you can't control their thinking, then they plan nocturnally and implement it. Okay, and the best you can do is to report to the security institutions, like we said, and that's why I mentioned earlier that to a very great extent, if government will rise up and be a little bit proactive and go after some of these hideouts, because we can't go into those hideouts, but we can get information. Nobody will stay in your forest that you will not know him, particularly in our rural areas, okay? But when you know and you give the information to government, of course they can go and dislodge them. Because like I said, and I was looking it up too, you Google it up. The best way to fight terrorism truly is by attack, not being on the defense. And since you and we cannot go on the offense, it's government that will go on the offense when we give them correct information. And once they do that, the terrorists too, because in military warfare, surprise accounts to 70% of success in any operation that you carry out. If you can take people unawares, okay? And then once you do that, and they too, they know that this time around, without their knowing, something can just blow on their face. It may help to curtail, some of occurrences.
Could you hold that thought?
Yeah.
It's that time on the Baroness where we open our phone lines for you to call in with your questions, observations, and comments. The line to call is 0703 654 5779. You can equally locate us on YouTube at Baroness Live PRTVC. Please, you can also get our previous episodes, those past episodes that are quite riveting. You get them on YouTube. Talking about our society as a whole, recent conversations tend to draw more towards the need to protect the girl child in society, possibly because at the end of the day, the vulnerable usually find themselves at the worst hit when it comes to crisis, to one issue or the other. What can we do more to ensure that the girl child, be it girls, women, and other vulnerable in society, are protected?
And the men.
Well, if you say so. If you say so. I say that because at a point in time, I was leaning towards buying a taser. And then I thought about maybe how to be better equipped when it comes to self-defense. And just last week, at the salon, a little girl came back from taekwondo lessons, and her mom was discussing, let this girl come and help me at home. Why is she going to go and learn taekwondo? Does she want to come and fight me? So, a lot of parents are beginning to look at some of these avenues. Is it necessary?
Yeah, we joke about this, but the truth of the matter, again, if somebody was coming to you with a stick,
okay,
a man can withstand, but look at the three of us. Even if it's a small boy coming with a pistol, in fact, I will wear a wrapper like you too and begin to find where I can exit. The point I'm making is, truly, the girl child, I feel for the plight of women, because they are on the first, line of victimhood in the whole episode that we found ourselves. Some of these technologies, like the teaser you're talking about, it can be very helpful, truly, and we encourage people, particularly. You can have things that, they are legally permissible for people to have. Like one of the things that I think we've not also mentioned is when we form all these vigilante groups, there are equipments that are legally permissible to be used. Like, we'll encourage every community to register with this Hunters Association. You can have pump action, guns, even if for nothing, because when you come to equate it to AK-47 rifle, it's like a stick to, again, what do you call it? Somebody that has a military-grade weapon. Now, but when you have that and you see you able to, create some level of alertness when danger comes, it helps people a lot. Now, for women and children, particularly the girl child that you're talking about, really, you see, when I was coming for this program, one of the things that I was just reflecting on is for us to use our intelligence gathering mechanism that I have cause to talk with some clergy, You women, for instance, when it comes to penetration and gathering intelligence, honestly, we give it to you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you see, no matter how we as Christians, I'm a Christian, I preach, but you might think the sister that is not too godly, okay, and people look down upon her, but she has reach and penetration in places that she can gather a lot of information that will help the community. But usually people, try to, keep them away. But when it comes to collective jeopardy, like a lot of communities are in, you see, some of these people, because when you don't accept them within the community, then they will carry your own information to the other. Yes. So, as girl child, honestly, God has given you that position, and I think it's biblical too. You wonder why spies will go to Rahab. I don't know. Okay, there's a lot of things that you can do, because when it happens, you are at the receiving end a little bit more than the men. Then I think, the cases of kidnap, that normally happens. They carry these children. I feel so bad because if you look at our experience too, like the Chibok girls, okay, I mean. They happen to be even classmates to my daughter. I feel it every day, that some of them are still languishing there. So when these things happen, you are at a greater receiving end, and therefore I feel that we can leverage on all the potentials we have, like we earlier said. You have military people, they can come with their expertise to contribute. If you're a woman, whatever, those that have certain reach, we gather information. But permit me to say, before we even round up on this inter-community collaboration, because I follow so many things on social media, okay, there are a lot of, let's put it with some religious coloration, there are a lot of Christians that are willing to collaborate with Muslims, and there are a lot of Muslims that are willing to collaborate with Christians, because in terrorism, all of us, we've received a fair share of the problem. Now, it behoves on us, because we have these segregated settlements. Honestly, we should reach out to leaders in these different communities and begin to discuss with them. We see ourselves as, brothers. And once you get information or some miscreants in your enclave are planning evil against the other community, you share with them. And I think the time is ripe, because if you've been following social media, almost everybody is completely fed up with this thing, because even the terrorists that will come out of those enclaves, the people know that they are leaving a lot of problem for them, because when there's reaction, innocent people within their community, pay so dearly for it. So I think if our community will make it also as a point of urgency to collaborate, and you see, this collaboration further brings in some, fraternity between the communities, and I think it will go a long way to give us a lot of succor.
We have a caller. Hello? You're on to the Baroness. Your name and where you're calling from, please. Hello? Hello, we can hear you. Okay, we seem to be having a bit of network difficulties.
Before we go, I would want to know now, whose responsibility now is it, or should it be, to ensure that this collaboration, is being done? Is it the responsibility of the community? Is it the responsibility of the security agencies? Whose responsibility should it be? So we know where to start from.
Perfect question. I think it's not saddling an institution to bring these people together, no. I would prefer a situation that, if, for instance, I think let's say, let's be practical. We have recourse. We have Angwan Rukuba on the right, if you are going, okay. Now, within recourse, it's possible for Angwan Rukuba youth or some leaders, community leaders, to know those that are having good mind towards, stopping all these crises in recourse. You can reach out to them, okay? It starts, you see, it's easy to cultivate friendship and relationship. Let's take, for instance, during Salah, you might have heard of Alaji Nuhu, Alaji this, those that pass, so they don't like all these trouble. Because when you are within that community, it's very easy to get information on that. You reach out to those people. How do we live? That Alaji Nuhu knows those that they have similar mind like him. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. And then they also know the reactionary forces that are living amongst them. And then when you come to Angwan Rukuba, if you have some miscreants too, maybe Nda Abok, for instance, he knows a few people that, they don't like any crisis. So you can reach out during Salah, felicitate with the person, and you map out collective strategy. I think that is better than when you ask the, security or institutions to bring you together. They bring in the bad, the good, and the ugly. So it's left for you to filter those that, you can really collaborate, who genuinely wants peace. And I can assure you, like I said, if you are a good social media follower, the time is ripe. You will be shocked that even the Jos crisis, those that cry out that there should be no crisis in Jos are even outside Jos. And some far northern states saying, don't touch our brothers here. When those that came out and were making threats, the counter threats were even beyond our state. So there are people that genuinely they love peace. And we can always identify, and like minds will always flow.
So bottom line, from all that you have said, you have now brought it back to the beginning. The onus is on us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is our collective responsibility to ensure that peace exists within our communities. That's my take home. Because from all that you have said, building these strategies is our responsibility. We need to find a way to live in peace with one another. And unless we collaborate together, we identify people that think alike, then I don't think this will stop. So, like you said, the time is now.
The time is now. And the time is now for us to exit the stage on the Baroness. Unfortunately, our time is fast spent. But as usual, we cannot leave without just appreciating you, Architect, for being part of our conversation on the Baroness today.
Thank you.
We're going to disturb you in the future, and we hope that you're going to avail yourself.
My pleasure, always.
Thank you,
Yes.
Remember, it is our responsibility to ensure that our communities are safe. So let's come together and work towards safety in our communities.
Nobody can bring you peace unless it comes from within. So do everything you can to be peaceful, to be at peace with yourself and with everybody around you. Until next time on The Baroness, have a wonderful time.